Hi there, and welcome to the final post-match reaction of the season, where Rangers have been defeated 1-0 in the Scottish Cup final against the other half of the old firm. I'm joined by Craig Dennett. Craig, I don't think either of us particularly want to be here right now, but we are. Let's just get straight into it. The lineup: Butland, Tav, Balogun, Davis, Yilmaz, Diomande, Raskin, Cantwell, Sterling, Dessers, and Silva out on that left. What did you make of that initial starting lineup? Was it the correct one?
I think so. I think it was as balanced as it could have been. I think the inclusion of Ridvan was a real boost. You're obviously unsure how fit he actually is. I think we saw in the game that he didn't look fit at all. To be honest, he was really struggling. But I think he still offered more than what potentially Borna Barisic or even Robbie Fraser does. To be honest, so I think it was good to see him in there. I think the only question really is Sterling out wide right. Would he have been better in the midfield? But I know in the build-up to this, we all spoke about the fact that we didn't want a number 10 in there, and it looked like that's what Cantwell was in there for. But I also thought today, the way Cantwell played, the way Cantwell helped the press, was very different to how we have done in the past against Celtic, and I thought that was a clear change, which meant that actually the midfield lineup, I thought, actually matched them pretty well after the first 10 minutes or so. You could see the first 10 minutes, Cyril Dessers and Todd Cantwell shouting at the rest of the team because they obviously weren't doing what they'd been doing during the week in training, or they weren't doing what Fleet Command's instructions were. So you could see that in the first 10 minutes. After that, I thought it was a very even game. It was a very scrappy game. Celtic probably edged the first half. We probably edged the second half up until the final few moments, and it was a very even game. We'll come into the ins and outs of why we're disappointed in the end.
Did we do enough that first half? Was it enough just to nullify Celtic? Is that enough?
I think at the moment, with the amount of injuries that we've have in the squad this season, with the limitations that we all know and we've all talked about time after time on this podcast, we know that Celtic come out strong and try and kill us in the first half. They put everything into the first half to try and go get a couple of goals ahead and know that they're out of sight and we won't come back from that, and that's that. I think almost what I saw from this Rangers team was stay in the game until halftime. That's pretty much what I saw. It was keep it close, keep it 0-0, keep it level. If we sneak a goal, great, but keep it level until. We joked about it early on in the game. We said we're going to try and keep it 0-0 until we can get a Sima on at 60 minutes, and that'll be when we try and make a mark. And we know Celtic tired at that point. We saw it again today. Celtic tired at the 55, 60 minute mark. It's when we scored the goal that was then disallowed. We'll come on to that and all the controversy around that. But it was, I think the game plan was working. The where we went wrong today, I think we're looking at the referee with the disallowed goal. It's never a foul in a million years. We've got Philip Coman's substitutions, and then we've got a Jack Butland mistake at the most crucial moment. That's where all today comes down to.
Well, seeing as you've blown the agenda apart there, let's go straight on to that Sima goal. We will get on to the substitutions as well, because we can't not, because it's, I don't want to say baffling, but who else is on the bench you bring on? But the Sima goal, it's a corner from James Tavernier. For once, I actually thought we had half decent set plays today, but
I thought we did as well. I thought we whipped the ball on top of the goalkeeper into the 6-yard box every time. We weren't quite getting on the end of them, but they were much better and much more threatening than our set pieces have been when they've been more contrived and more trying to pick out a certain player in a certain place. Actually, you know what? Just whip it on top of the goalkeeper and see what happens.
It was all about percentages today with our set plays, but just the corner that we've seen from Tav 2 or 3, 4 times before, it was just on repeat right on top of the goalkeeper. Joe Hart seemingly comes out, misses it. Sima's in at the back post and just sort of knees it in. It inevitably goes to VAR. We knew, because the length of time it was taking, that was going to be disallowed for a goal. What was your thoughts on because at the end of the day, it was Nick Walsh's decision to not award that goal?
Yeah, I think when you first see it, you see a great ball from James Tavernier. Joe Hart's flapping at it, and I didn't actually see it hit the back of the net. taken away, I guess, by yourself and Ross's celebrations
Mm.
in that moment. But it's a good finish of Abdul Asima and in the back post. And as the length of time, you're like, oh, I wonder what's happened there within that. I think there's a few elements to it. Greg Taylor is grabbing hold of Nicholas Raskin as there's movement in the box. Nicholas Raskin has the lightest of touches on Joe Hart, I think it's fair to say. Joe Hart, and it's miles before the ball even gets towards Joe Hart as well.
Mm.
The timing of the sequence, Joe Hart then tries to punch the ball, misses it completely. Abdul Hassan puts it in the back of the net. Everyone thinks it's goal to Rangers. There's even on replays, everyone was saying there's no way that's a foul. Even if goalkeepers are overprotected, there's still no way that's a foul. And yet Nick Walsh is called over to the monitor. Whether that's right or wrong, he's called over to the monitor, but he rules it as being a foul in the slow motion replay, and it's a disgraceful decision. If I'm honest, it's a terrible decision, and it's another decision that goes Celtic's way in these games, and those are definitely totting up, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, it's almost like pressure's been getting put on the referees, but I'm sure we could discuss that another time. Right, the next action of the second half is, because there's nothing else really to report, is the goal that we conceded late on. I think it was just, we could all sort of feel it coming. Ball in the centre of the pitch, you just sort of get housed up. I do not know what Scott Wright is doing here, to be quite honest with you, how he doesn't control this. And yes, we will get on to his inclusion and being on the pitch at that point for Todd Cantwell, but that it is just a shocking touch. And then there's a couple of things I think Raskin could maybe do a bit better there. And then, we were watching it, Butland got a bit of a hard time for not dealing with the shot better. There are so many opportunities in that phase of play that we could just deal with that and prevent that from happening.
I think before we got into that, we spoke about earlier about the game plan seemed to be keep the score tight, keep the game tight until we get to 60, 65 minutes. Celtic will tire, Celtic will gas themselves out, and then that's when we can start to come into our own a bit. That's exactly what happened. Even after the goal, you thought, oh, that goal being disallowed will give Celtic a bit of a lift. It didn't. They had nothing left to give in that moment in time. They had we saw however many fouls from McGregor, from Taylor, from Alistair Johnson. They were getting riled up, they were getting frustrated, and we were just playing our game, and we were coming into it more and more as time went on. We were getting more and more foot in the ball, more and more space to play, and it. To be honest, I felt pretty positive as we headed into that last 20-25 minutes in terms of how we were playing and how
it's
the
hope that kills you.
It's always the hope that kills you, isn't it, with Rangers, especially this season. But like you say, Scott Wright's touch, whether he should have been on the pitch or not in that position, we'll come on to in a second. Scott Wright's touch is awful, but Celtic have still got to run 3/4 the length of the pitch at that point. Nicholas Raskin should have done better, and then they take a speculative shot from 25 yards out. It swerves, which is the undoing of Jack Butland, I think. But the blame lies at Jack Butland's door, unfortunately. He's been such a great player for us this season, and for the season to end in that way for Rangers, and you never know, he might be sold in the summer as well. If that's the way,
don't depress us more,
if
man.
that's the way his time at Rangers ends, that'll be really disappointing, because he's been such a good player for Rangers that it's sad to see that happen. But it was in the big moment, Jack Butland was left wanting, and it was a mistake that ultimately cost us the game and the League Cup trophy, because I felt the Scottish Cup trophy, I should say, sorry, because I felt that we were in the ascendancy at that point, and if we went into extra time, we would only continue in that vein.
Yeah, well, that's it, exactly. That's just the most disappointing thing about today, is that's one chance I think they've had, and it's been scored, and it's been the difference in another cup final. Craig, let's sort of get on to what most people are talking about on social media here, and it's the substitutions. Let's just go through them. 45 minutes, Dessers off, Sima on. 75 minutes, Silva comes off from Rabbi Matondo. Cantwell comes off for Scott Wright. 81 minutes, Sterling's off for Ross McCausland. And 93 minutes, the last substitution of the game, Raskin off for John Lundstrom. But there's only one place to start in there. Was it the correct decision taking Todd Cantwell off for Scott Wright?
Right, let's go through them chronologically. Right, let's
don't string this out any longer than it has to be, man.
Let's take it chronologically. So Dessers for Sima, I think Dessers got
injured
in the first half. We saw Sima potentially a bit earlier than we thought we would, but Sima had a really positive impact on the game. He was stretching Celtic more. They were worried about his pace, and he was often a real outball to us. And I think Sima was a real positive for us today. The Cantwell for Wright, Silva for Matondo. I got the Silva for Matondo one. Matondo has so much pace. I get he's been out injured. He probably had 15, 20 minutes in his legs. So to bring him on at that point, I think Matondo on the left-hand side, running at Alistair Johnson is 100% the right decision. The Cantwell off and right on one is baffling. I know Cantwell was starting out on the right-hand side of the front three. Sorry, and I thought he was doing really well. I actually thought Cantwell was having a really good game. I don't know what your thoughts on that were, but Cantwell was having a really good game for me, and he was coming more and more into it as we were getting more and more possession and more as we were becoming more dominant in that space as we went into the final 15-20 minutes or so. But Scott Wright being on at that point, I would get if Cantwell was struggling or if Cantwell was tiring, but he definitely wasn't, and it's such a strange call to make it such an important time in the game, and it's yet another one that's just a mark against Philippe Clement, where you start to doubt, is he the right man going forward? Is he the right man? Is he making these decisions he's making? Are they the right ones for Rangers when they don't meet the eye test and they don't meet the I guess fans can make a lot of rash judgments, right? But they've watched a lot of football in their time, and they've watched the Rangers play a lot of games of football over their lifetime. And sometimes you just know from a feeling and from seeing something that it's the wrong call, and that felt like one of those.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with you there, and for what it's worth, I thought Cantwell was having an excellent game up until that point. He was only one of our players that were, taking the ball in, holding it up, letting the runners go ahead and looking for a pass, whatever. But yeah, and I'm not too sure about that decision, to be honest with you, and I think we'll get a lot of comments on that decision as well, which is fair. The next sort of talking point I want to come on to as well is, well, in fact, before we get there, did Clement get his tactics wrong today?
I actually thought he got them right today. I think you could see that the team had worked heavily on something during the week, on a specific approach. The first 10 minutes, Celtic were pretty dominant of the ball, and you could see from, I mentioned earlier about the frustration that Cantwell and Dessers were shown. At that point, you could see that we weren't doing what we were supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
After that, I felt like we did. I felt like we cut off those passing lanes to Cal McGregor quite a lot. I thought we were pressing much better. There were a few occasions where it went wrong. That's going to happen, I think, with that approach. But it looked like, especially from the start, we were sitting more as a two banks of four with Cantwell then pushing up to be in that sort of striking position when we didn't have the ball, which meant we sat back in more of a 4-4-2 formation. I felt like it was working. We were giving William Scales the ball again, absolutely fine. He didn't do anything with it at all. So I thought the tactics were right. You can't legislate, I don't think, for the two fullbacks having shockers of games. James Tavernier again he just looks knackered. He just looks like he's done almost, doesn't he?
Yeah.
His contributions to that game were almost nothing, and that's surprising from a James Tavernier who's been so influential in so many big games. Red Van Yilma, as we spoke about, has been injured, so you can give him a bit of a pass. He was giving his best, but even when he had the ball and some simple passes on, he just was not at the races.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But I'll say nail my colours to the mast. I still think Clement is the man for Rangers. I have seen signs of improvement there today. We certainly frustrated them at points. I know it means nothing because we don't have a trophy at the end of it, but taking the small positives out of it, do you think Clement's the right man going forward to lead this team next season?
I think he is, but I've got question marks now. I think after the start he had, I was giving them quite a bit of leeway, even over how the league season ended. It's more the players reverting to type than Philippe Clement's decision, and injuries starting to hamper us as well. Today, and a few other games as well, but his substitutions in certain moments in games are just a bit strange. The substitutions have a major impact on the game, and a lot of the time they tend to be negative rather than positive, and that's that's a bit of a question mark in my mind at the moment. So I think he'll get the time. I think he'll get all of next season. I don't think the club will go. We're in a cycle of manager comes in, completes the rest of a season with someone else's squad, gets a transfer window, doesn't start the next season right, gets sacked, do it all again the next season, and we can't keep going in that cycle. So something needs to break that. And I think Floyd Clement has enough of a standing in the game, and he's built enough credit where he gets the chance to do this. But there has to be a major overhaul this summer. We all know that. We've all heard the rumours of what players are going out the door. We saw Hefty announced last night as a first person through the door. There needs to be at least 9 or 10 others coming through the door at the same time with the same number, if not more, going out the door. It's going to be a major. We thought last summer was a major overhaul. This summer is going to be huge, and there'll be some names that have been stalwarts for Rangers for a number of years now that we'll see going out the door. And I wouldn't be surprised if it is James Tavernier, if it is Connor Goldson, John Lundstrom, Borna Barisic, these players that we've seen being part of the first 11 time in, time out, year in, year out. I think this summer will be when we see the back of a lot of those, maybe not all, but a lot of them. And I think next season we need to start fresh, and Floyd Clement will be judged from minute one.
Yeah, and Craig says he wasn't emotional before we came on this podcast, and he's just binned half of the team there. I mean, you have basically come on to my next question in terms of what now. I mean, is that I'm assuming the manager's just, maybe had a week off or something like that, or even if that, and then he's straight in there with Coppin. We've got to be going out and identifying targets, and the key to this, and I've sick of saying this for the past few years, the key to this rebuild is starting early. I suppose it was a bit odd, I think, the announcement or the timing of that announcement of Hefty yesterday. But yeah, they've just got to go at it now, don't they, the rest of the summer?
They absolutely do. I mean, Clement came out last week potentially saying that him and Coppin have been working on it for months. You've got to hope that there's a full plan in place. Now, we know how transfer windows work. You don't get your first target all the time. You don't always get your second target, but there's a list that you work through in terms of priorities, in terms of who you want in the door, and that should already be in place, and conversations already well underway on in a lot of those spaces. So Clement might go on holiday for a week, for 2 weeks, but he's going to be working. He's going to be working time after time. I actually watched don't know if you've seen it yet, the 99 documentary on Amazon Prime about Manchester United, and the day after they won the Champions League in 1999 against Bayern Munich. We all know the drama that happened there. Alex Ferguson turned around to Steve McLaren during those celebrations and said, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning at the training ground, and we're going again. And that's what you need. That's the attitude you need. That's the mentality you need, and it's fully what I expect from Floyd Clement if he's going to be a success as Rangers manager.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with you there. It's still quite raw, still quite emotional after that final, but we can only put our faith in the manager yet again. And
I'm going to ask you a question, Kyle, and I'm going for you. Do you think we deserve to win that game?
I think it is the best we have played against them all season. I don't think either team created enough chances to win that game from open play. I think that was a settling it on penalties type game, and you know how I feel about penalties. Yeah. Do you think we deserve to win that game?
No, I think it was a coin toss. I think it was a 50-50. Celtic had the better first half. We had the better the second half, and we were building more and more into that game, and I had confidence if we were going into extra time that we would continue on that upwards trajectory. I think there was nothing between the sides. I thought our change in approach worked. Clearly, Celtic were struggling. We've said all season that we don't think Celtic are a great side, and that's the frustration that we have, that in each of these games that we've lost to Celtic this season, it's always been by a single goal, but it's always went their way. That the law of averages even suggests that shouldn't continue, but it has, and that's been really disappointing. But I thought it was a coin toss today completely, and we were on the wrong side of it.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to go back to bloody old points, but seeing as we're there, I think that the bench and the personnel and the injuries make a huge difference to that. Because see, if you're looking at some of those subs like Wright, Matondo, for me, don't make an appearance if Danilo is fit and Cortez is still fit. You just don't see them at all, and that's been a huge difference. I mean, it's affected our season too much, I think.
Yeah, it's a story, same story again.
Yeah.
And this is why people stop talking about it, but it has such a big impact on seasons, and it's had such a big impact on us for the last 3, 4, 5 years, maybe, where injuries have just killed us at so many moments in time, and people stop talking about it because, well, why would you keep talking about the same thing over and over? But it's still, it doesn't mean it's has any less of an impact on us as a team or on us as a squad. We're battling through it, and in many occasions we find our way through it because we have a budget that should have a squad that can get through a lot of the games.
Yeah.
But there are moments where it really impacts you in games like today at the end of a long season, where Rangers have played every single domestic game possible this season, as well as getting to the latter stages of the Europa League. And it's days like today where you really need that squad to be able to turn up in the first team players. But there's too many players that have been out for 20 plus games under Fleet. Come on, and it's injuries can't be discounted as part of the reason why this season's gone how it's gone.
Yeah, hard to disagree with anything you've said there. But look, I think that's a place where we'll finish this podcast. Just want to say thanks everybody for tuning in this season, watching us out there. We'll be back. We're going to take a break for a few weeks now. And yeah, but thank you everybody. Take care, and we'll see you all again soon.